Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nashville Tour Stop Podcast, episode number 111, featuring return guest, Miss Tory Grace. Welcome to our new podcast studio.
Hey, hey!
We are now recording live on Music Row here in Nashville, Tennessee, in a beautiful podcast studio, courtesy of Interstate Music. It is much more spacious and smells less like dog than my living room.
Beautiful. I'm happy to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. What have you been up to? I haven't seen you in a week.
I know. It hasn't really been a week. When did we get coffee? We got coffee like...
a month ago. Oh, shit.
Probably a month. Yeah, it's been... I was like, I don't think it's been that recent because I don't leave my house that often.
I don't either.
What have I been up to? I just put out a single over the weekend.
That was called Match.
That was called Match. It was a shit show.
Yeah, I saw. I was following it all on Instagram. What was going on?
There was a minute of silence tacked on the end.
Oh.
So I had to delete the thing completely and re-upload. And
that's a nightmare.
It takes like 3 days for it to disappear, and it still hasn't disappeared, but the new one is already up. So now there's just two versions. I don't know which one people are streaming. But if you're listening to this, please stream the 3-minute one.
Do you know how that happened?
One.
Do you have any idea?
It was just an oversight in like production and like the mastering.
Just 3 minutes of silence. I can imagine when you saw it on like Spotify the first time, you're like, why does this say that it's 4.5 minutes long?
I didn't even notice at first. I actually picked it up pretty fast. It had been out for like an hour. And I was like listening to it to see how it sounded on both of the things. But usually when I press play on something, once it's over, it'll just play back from the beginning again. And I was like in the kitchen doing something and realized that it had just been sitting in silence for a while, but it said it was still going and that there was like still time on it. And I was like, immediate panic. I'm sweating. I'm like, what do I do? Oh my God. I have been like pushing this song for a year.
And it's not the way I hoped it would be.
And it had 300 pre-saves too, which is like good for me. Like I busted my butt trying to get those pre-saves. I think that's why it took so long to get it out, because I really wanted it to do well. And then I had to delete it and lost all the pre-saves. And it was so tragic.
That's mortifying.
Yeah, everybody's
talk
nightmare.
about one of the worst things that can happen to an indie artist.
Yes, exactly. I said that in my Instagram story. I was like, this is such a nightmare for somebody who like has to just fight the good fight to get people to even give a single shit about one of your songs. And
and it's awful because you give so much shit about it, and then just trying to convince anyone to is like that's like trying to get my family to listen to my music.
Yeah,
like. I'm sad, sorry.
Yeah,
but like trying to convince people to listen to a song for 3 minutes is way harder than it should be.
Yeah, to stay the whole time. Yeah.
Like, hey, this is art I created.
It's also like you pour your money into the ones like we write so many songs in a year and so many songs for ourselves, and then we pick the one that we like the most or believe in the most and pour our time and our money and our talents into this song, and you make goofy, stupid TikToks and content for the internet trying to get people to like pay attention. And then it finally comes out and all of you're like about to take a sigh of relief and you're like, oh shit, here
and
we
then
go
instead
again.
of that sigh of relief, you do this.
Oh my God. I think I called my friend Kayla. You know Kayla Crow.
Yeah.
She's one of the most phenomenal people in the world. And I called her and was like, I need you to help me. And I was like, I'm quitting. I give up. I don't want to do this anymore. She's like, are you for real? Like,
I go through that almost every day. I'm just like, I hate this. I'm done. And then something normal happens. Like, nope, I'm done.
Nope.
I'm done. It's like, for example, we're recording this on a Monday, and I just got a notification from one of the venues we work with that they are moving us to a different location that they own. And my first response is, fuck it, we're done. We're
just
over.
Take us off the schedule.
We're breaking up.
We're done.
It's like the smallest inconvenience.
That's a first world problem.
They're like,
we still have a place to do it, but it's not
we
the
just
place
need to
we
move.
want.
And I'm like,
but it really does change things.
It does.
I feel like sometimes people will want to play at one place more than they will the other place. It sometimes gets harder to book people,
right?
Depending on what the venue is,
right? Depending on where the venue is, and like, I mean, parking's a huge factor for where people choose to play now. Mm-hmm. And did you see the whole thing about downtown musicians getting
60% off? I signed up. Do you have the link?
I did not get the link.
I'll send you the link now.
Yeah, she's going to text me the link
I'm
right now.
Her the link.
But they
Texting
get discounts for working downtown, and I think that's a good start. But I think that if you work downtown, you shouldn't have to pay to go to work. Like,
I know.
I think that
it's always been that way, though. And even 60%, like, I will take what I can get. 60% off of my parking. But still, if that's $35 to $40 parking, 60% off of that, you're still paying
$15, $20. And on a good day, that's not that much. But on a bad day, that could be all of the tips you made.
Yeah. Yeah, I just recently played at a venue that I play at pretty often, and there's recently been like a change in management, and so our schedules and like our base and everything has changed. But I got scheduled for a night that there was a private event.
That blows.
And I didn't know prior to showing up that it was a private event, a corporate buyout of the whole establishment, which meant I couldn't have my QR code up on the screen. I couldn't have a tip jar out. And they said they were going to pay double base pay, or that was like the understanding. But
that was not the case.
That was not the case.
Yeah, and what sucks is venues have so much leverage over the musicians to be like, oh, well, these are the rules now. Yeah. And if you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah. If you don't like it, we'll find somebody who will play for free or play for less than you play for.
Yep.
Because there are other people who are begging. And it's like, okay, it's this constant battle between choosing to be grateful for what you have and standing up for like what you have to offer.
Not taking shit.
Yeah. Not being taken advantage of.
Right.
And knowing that like, I know what I bring to the table. I know like what I deserve to make, and I know what I need to make in order to keep a roof over my head.
And you're better than these kids who are willing to play for free. Like, what I hate to say it, but when you start charging like a legitimate rate, it makes serious people take you seriously. Yeah. And that was one of the things that happened early on with Tour Stop. Was like, I got my first, what I called like my real client, and I charged what to me at the time sounded like way too much money. And then all of a sudden, these people are just like, okay. You're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I have to deliver now.
Yeah.
And then it makes people take it more seriously.
Yeah.
Because you take it more seriously, the place takes it seriously. And I wish that more people understood that. Because they're like, why would we pay Tour Stop to book rounds or whatever when we can get people who will do it for half or for free? And I'm like, because we're better at it.
Yeah.
We're better at it.
Yeah.
You want reliable, talented people to show up. This is what we offer. And then there's some people who don't offer reliability.
Right.
And that's why it costs extra. Reliability costs extra.
Yeah.
We should put that in our contract writers. Reliability costs extra.
Yeah, I have this idea to wear a shirt downtown that says cat calls are an additional $10. Because I'm sick of being objectified. And I should get paid for it, damn it.
What are, I mean, there's probably hundreds of them, but give us a Broadway horror story of just like something weird that's happened while you've been playing.
Okay, this happened very, like a week ago.
Okay.
I swear to God. I was playing at one of my favorite stages to play on downtown. I co-front for like a rock band downtown. When I'm not playing like acoustic solo or acoustic trio stuff, most of my schedule is like playing like Evanescence and like the hard shit downtown. And we played the closing shift, and our guitar player came out of the bathroom. And he said, Tori, you need to go upstairs and you need to count the tips and you just need to stay up there. And I was like, okay. There were these guys that were like kind of like lurking on the side of the stage all night. And like I'm used
Looking
to it.
Or lurking? Lurking. Ugh.
Like, okay. Like sitting on the side staring at me like this.
Gross.
I like turned over earlier that night to a guy and was like, hey, like, did you want to request something? Because he was just standing there staring at me. So I was like, did you want to request something? He's like, oh, no. He's like, I'm getting everything I need right where I'm at. And I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, ew. He's like, I'm just checking out your ass, essentially. And just like walks away. There are people that just say weird shit all night. But like the guitar player comes upstairs and is like, yeah, there's a guy in the bathroom. There's a couple guys. They're like in a stall together talking about like game planning, how they're going to get the singer girl to go home with them.
Gross.
And how they had like a backup plan. And then they like go into like vulgar detail about what they want to do. And they got escorted out of the bathroom and out of the bar. It was awful. And you know, it's like sometimes I'm like the little things it's sad to say, but a lot of these bands downtown hire a woman co-front on purpose because we can run the bucket and we're approachable and we're friendly and we have the eyelashes, and
drunk dudes are more likely
money.
to give you money than they are the guitar player.
Middle-aged men will tip me more than they will tip the guys in the band.
That's an unfortunate reality.
But it's true. And for the most part, I know that is my role stepping into it. Like I know that's a big reason of why I'm there. And but I also know that the guys that I work with are incredibly respectful, and they have me there because they believe in my talent. They believe I'm talented and they want me to be a part of their show. And so it doesn't bother me that I'm with them, but it just gets out of hand. There are a lot of times where I'm like, I know when I'm about to run the bucket that somebody is going to probably say something to me. People will lean up to me and put their head right on my ear and just say bullshit into my ear. But there are other times where, and that'll happen and I'll be like, it's part of the job, whatever. At least they gave me $100, whatever. I guess money talks. Whatever.
You're like, turns out that much of my dignity is $100 a second.
Right. But there are other times where it's like I'm walking through the bar and somebody will reach down and grab my ass. And that's when I turn around and say, don't fucking touch me.
Don't fucking touch me.
Don't get your hands, your filthy, nasty, dirty ass hands.
It's like, this ass is $10,000 a squeeze.
Yeah, I know. New t-shirt. Ass grabs. Yes, yeah, and I have a pretty good relationship with the security people there,
and that's probably really important for a Broadway performer too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that the circuit that I'm in is probably the best, is probably the only ones on the strip that really take it seriously. There is a hierarchy of the Broadway circuits that are better than or worse. I'm telling you, those purple bars, they do not care about their performers. And I have so many amazing, talented, wonderful friends that play in those bars that get the worst disrespect and have horrible things happen to them, and nobody will do anything about it if they didn't see it personally. And it's so disheartening. Because this is our job. This is, we want to be able to do this and go home loving what we do. And sometimes you just don't.
Sometimes you just don't.
Yeah.
It's one of those days, when stuff like that happens, I can only imagine that you're like, do I love this much?
Right.
And that's when it does feel like work.
Yeah.
And not fun. Because sure, when you're playing Chicken Fried or whatever, or Heads Carolina, and people are singing along and having the best time of their life, that's when it's fun.
Yeah.
But then you have to go around it, and then you do have to occasionally smack someone, be like, don't touch me.
Yeah, get your hands off of me.
And I hate saying it, that's something that's a problem in probably every industry.
Yeah.
Because pervy weirdos are everywhere.
Yeah. But in the waiting industry and the everything, yeah.
I've been pretty lucky that I've never had to have too much of that. But I have experienced some of it with Tour Stop in the past, where I've encountered those people at my shows who have had interactions with me. And I, in my very small way, have been like, oh, this is what girls go through every day.
Yeah.
And so props to you for being able to tolerate that, but God, I can't imagine how annoying that must get.
It's really hard. it's really hard. I have been slipped things in my drinks in places would be the last place that you imagined it would happen, and you just, at the end of the day, I've gone to a lot of therapy for it and worked through it, and I obviously still show up, but it's not because I love what I do, and I really, really believe in what I bring to the table. And I really believe that I'm here for a reason, and that I haven't left after all of this. I've been able to still show up for a reason.
I think that the term, the 10-year town, is not just 10 years until you have your number one.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it from a perspective of 10 years until the people around you just quit.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that, but it's probably a reality of people who have things like this happen to them, and they're like, I can't tolerate this.
Yeah.
And props to you for you did it.
It's
You're
crazy
doing
that
it.
you say that because I've been thinking about that a lot too. Because I'm about to be 5 years in, so I'm halfway through my 10 years of being. It'll be 5 years in June.
Wow.
And I've been thinking a lot about like, what is it that makes somebody want to leave after 10 years? Because it's not that you're like, I mean, half of it has to be that you're showing up to these like rites every day and you're putting out this music and nothing is sticking.
Nothing's happening.
But what's the other half of it? The other half has got to be the experiences that you've had and the people that you've met and the friendships that have like come and gone and like relationships that have like exploded in your face.
Right.
And it's the things that you've experienced and traumatic things that have happened. And you get to a point where you're like, is it really worth all of this?
Is it worth the anxiety and depression that I go through to have that 4 minutes of fun?
Yeah. And this last year has been the hardest of all of the years that I've been here. I don't think I left. I think I might have played 5 or less writers' rounds last year.
Wow.
Because I was just so burnt out, not on like chasing my dream necessarily, but I was just burnt out on like trying to be relevant to other people. I was burnt out on like putting all of this effort into being the best version of myself and coming up short all the time. And I was insecure. I was the most insecure I've ever been in my life, which is kind of saying something because I have been through some shit in my life. But the last year of my life has been really one where I had to look in the mirror and say like, okay, am I going to push myself through this, or am I just going to start digging my grave now?
Right.
Like,
because I remember last year, you said you didn't play very often. I actually had you on one of my lists of people, like I call it people not playing right now. Yeah. So I know not to bother you to like ask. Because like when it's time, and if the time comes that you do want to, you'll tell me. Yeah. You'll reach out. But I don't want to constantly like, hey, hello. And then I wouldn't want to guilt somebody into playing when they don't have it in their heart to like enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because you're playing writers' rounds for free, so it should be fun. And if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, that defeats the purpose of it. And going and showing up and going through the motions defeats the purpose of what the, like, writers' round scene and community is for.
Yeah.
And there's people who, I see it all the time, the people who the eyes are glazed over and they're just playing, and then the moment, all right, thanks. It's like, you didn't even want to be here. I have to remind the kids on stage, and I use kids pejoratively because like I'm getting old, but like the kids on stage, just like you have to want to be there so bad. Yeah. It's like with the pre-saving, it's like you have to want it 1,000 times more than the people who are looking at what you're selling. Yeah. And if you don't want it, why would they? Yeah. It's like she's only promoted this show once. She probably doesn't really care. It's probably not that important. I won't go.
Yeah. Well, I was also going through like a genre shift too. And so that was like really different. I was kind of figuring out, who the fuck am I? Like, what is going on?
Who is Tory Grace 2.0?
What makes me feel the most myself and feel the most alive? And I'd kind of gotten to a point where I was walking into these writers' rooms and writing all sad girl country stuff. And I was just leaving every room, bawling my eyes out. Right. Because I'd have to sit there and dig through like years of trauma and retell these stories of things that had happened to me and things that people had said to me and relive the way that it made me feel all the time for the sake of a song. Tough. And that gets exhausting too, you know? So maybe it is a little bit that like you're tired of like chasing the music thing because it causes you to like feel everything a little deeper than everybody else in the world. And yeah, that was crazy. And then I started making this music that's really just like angry and sassy, and I think I changed all of my sadness to like angst. you've changed your genre from the sad girl country to what would you call it now? It's like, don't fuck with me.
Don't fuck with me. I feel like there's two types of female country music, and I'm sure you've seen the meme, and it's like I'm sad or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. yeah. Oh,
that's why Goodbye Earl was such a hit.
It's funny, like on TikTok, I post a lot in my car. I think that's probably the only videos that I have that like will do decently are ones where I'm sitting in my car lip syncing my songs and whatever. And I'm seeing this like repeating, like this pattern is happening where people keep commenting on like songs and saying, this is a narcissistic abuse anthem.
Oh my God.
And it's happened like to 3 of my songs now. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll write the narcissistic abuse anthem. Like that's, maybe that could be my thing. But I'm like, man, have I really like been through it that many times where all of my
it's
songs
like all of my music is about this.
It's about narcissistic abuse because it tracks, but
I mean, I started thinking about it kind of like all of the songs I were writing were just like my funny music, and it's like, sure, all of this is funny, but do I have other feelings?
But
it's like, do I have narcissistic abuse feelings?
Are you? Am I just hiding my feelings?
It's like
by writing silly songs.
Do you ever fall down the rabbit holes on Wikipedia and you're just like, oh, what is it? Oh, what and then all of a sudden you're looking up like borderline personality disorder, and you're like, what? What about me looking up Kevin Bacon got me to borderline personality disorder? Oh my God. And like I had it the other day where I fell down one of those rabbit holes and I was looking up like the scientific credibility of repressed memories. And it turns out that that's like hokey because people who have like repressed memories and then you go to therapy and it can turn into false memories where you remember something that didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
And it's like stuff like that. So I don't even remember why, but talk about the rabbit hole we fall down. But
that's going to trick me into thinking that like these vivid memories I have as a child are not real.
Maybe if I fall down this rabbit hole, I will recreate something that I can then write about.
I'm going to, for real, I'm going to go.
Well, we actually met for coffee, you mentioned, to brainstorm a podcast topic. And we don't do topic episodes very often, but it's something that I don't remember what inspired the conversation.
You posted on your Instagram story and we're like, musicians, don't be afraid to ask for tips.
Oh, right. Because
remember, you're playing for free.
We do play for free, and some of the Broadway gigs, that's something we'll get to, but like we live on tips, and it's important to know like how to do that, when to do it, and why to do it. So Tori and I did a little brainstorming. So we have our notes.
We have
for
our
the video.
Notes. Yes.
But for those of you listening, we're gonna title this episode, even though it's with Tory Grace, "How to Make Money When You're Not Making Money."
When you're not making money. Different strokes for different folks. This is yes.
Then Tori put down on our notes, "Different strokes for different folks."
It's true.
But we have a bunch of different things we're going to talk about, but we have 3 main categories we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about playing writers' rounds, playing the Broadway and cover scenes, and then we'll get into live streaming.
Yeah.
But just to start off, Tori and I were discussing the importance of writers' rounds. So before we even get into how to make money doing those, make sure that you want to be there, because again, if you don't want to be there,
everybody's going to know.
Including
yourself.
Will know. The audience will know. The person who booked you will know. And the people who are on stage with you will know. So, Tori, would you like to do point number 1 on our Writers' Rounds notes?
Point number 1. We talked about QR codes. That's something that I used to do. I would have a QR code of my link tree, and I'd put it on every table.
That's actually something that I started doing because of you.
Did you do it?
I did it.
Oh, yeah.
I printed off like 100 little business card size QR codes and I laminated them in my house.
I have a whole stack of them that I take with me, like if I'm on the road or if I'm playing, like it works wonders when I'm playing like places like the listening room and like kind of that like table seating. I guess you could do it at like Cambria too, like those tabletops. If you set it on top and
so like mine have the QR code with the logo on it, and then underneath it it'll say like scan to learn more or tip tonight's artists. So like with the link tree that it goes to, it's got at the very top like tip tonight's artists. And then it's got all of the other relevant stuff like our other calendar dates, and then like social media and everything. And there's so many ways that you can engage with your performers, or excuse me, well, I guess your fellow performers.
Yeah, your performers are sitting there too.
With your audience members, because one of the things, I forget where I read it, but it's about like how to make a sale. And the best way to make a sale is to make the product you're selling as simple as possible to purchase.
Yeah.
And the more steps somebody has to go through to give you money, the less likely they are to do it. So if you have that link tree with your like Venmo or your PayPal and it's one click or 2 clicks away, people are probably going to do that. But as soon as you have to start like, oh, is it Tory Grace with an I or Tory Grace with a Y?
What's the last 4 digits of your phone number? Okay, here's a pro tip. Tell them right before. Sometimes I will just like say, hey, there's a QR code. I'll be like, hey, if you like what you're hearing, like if you want to hear something, whatever. This is in a kind of a different setting, I guess. But when I'm talking about my QR code, I'll say that'll take you to the virtual tip jar. It might ask you to confirm my phone number. There's also just a little button underneath that says pay without confirming.
Right.
And that'll allow you to pay. I will like say that because otherwise so many people will come up and be like, what's your phone number? And
you're like, I'm not going to broadcast that.
And then
to
they feel
a
dumb
video.
when I'm like, hey, like there's a little button there that you can.
I have seen people put the 4 digits on like those little tacker boards or something. But even so, it's like I don't know if I'd want to give up even that much of my phone number.
Yeah, I don't trust people. Like it's pretty easy to figure out what the first 3 of somebody's is. You know?
Right. So if you're in Nashville, like, okay, the area is going to be 615, and now I have the last 4, so I'm going to have to guess 3
so now
numbers.
I just have 3. It's like a little Morse code.
Like I just recently got a new cell phone number, and I've had a bunch of people ask why.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
too many people have it.
That's the real reason. But the reason I've been telling people now that I've just told you the real reason. But the reason I was telling you is because my hometown area code was changing, so I was going to have to get a new number no matter what.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is a perfect opportunity to clean the slate.
Yeah.
And I had this one guy who took my phone off of a table at the Cambria Hotel once, called himself from my phone to give him my number. And he's like, yo, I'm going to call you and we can talk about booking some shows. I was like, all right, so no.
That's crazy.
Number one, we're not doing that.
That's some crazy girlfriend shit.
And
like that's something that a crazy person would do.
Yeah. So I closed the conversation with him and said, you have one chance to not use my number wrong.
Yeah.
One.
Oh my God.
And he left and immediately texted me a link to his Google Drive of a new album. And I was like, wrong. Unsubscribe.
No, that's crazy.
And like that happens. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So clean slate.
For the record, what would be a good first chance? Like, hey man, let's get together.
So our producer Alex asks, what would be a good first text? I said, don't do this the wrong way or whatever. A good first text would be to say, hey, nice to meet you last night. How can I get in touch with you about booking shows?
Yeah.
What is a more effective way to get in touch?
I'm sorry for the way I took your phone.
Hey, I'm sorry for the way that I acted. That's it.
Hey, please forgive me and don't let this burn our relationship.
Yeah. So if he had texted me asking like, what is a more professional way for me to get in touch with you, that would have been more acceptable.
Yeah.
But the fact that he immediately just texted me a URL link to a bunch of WAV files, I was like, nah.
Here's my EPK.
Here's my EPK. I know the link doesn't work, but if you change these 4 characters that are lost inside of the URL, then you'll find it.
But if you don't book me, I'm going to give your phone number to everybody now that I have it.
There's a venue here in town called Fat Bites. Have you ever been there?
I've heard of it.
So
wait,
I think it's relatively new.
Is it in?
It's over off of Lebanon Pike.
That's what I was going to say. It's in Donaldson. I don't think it's new. I think it's been there a little while.
Is it pretty old then?
It's kind of over by Ace Hardware or whatever. Yeah.
But I was going to go there over the weekend, but I went to see what the calendar was, and I went to their Instagram, and I clicked the URL on the Instagram, and it didn't work.
Of course not.
Because they had their own...
They're kind of like a small...
Yeah, it didn't work. So I messaged them, and I was like, hey, your website is misspelled on your profile. And like, I'm not trying to be mean. I was just like, just so you know, your business website currently is Fat Pites, P-I-T-E.
Oh, no, not Fat Pites.
Fat Pites.
Oh.
But I was like, that's something that you should fix. So I'll just...
Fat Pites.
So to put a cap on the QR code thing, like the easier it is for people to purchase your product, the better off you'll be, and the more likely you'll be to make more money.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So let's go on to point number 2 here. I put cater your tip spiel to different kinds of audience members, because Tory was also talking about the weirdo bros versus you've probably interacted with the mom and dad crowds and the boomer crowds and everything.
Yes.
Like, you do need to have different things to say to different types of people because, again, you're selling the same product. But think about, like, the commercials you see on TV and everything or on the radio. They're all catering to a specific demographic. And that will help you sell more directly to different people.
Yeah.
So if you say something like, I'll play this song that's by this artist, you might be looking at somebody who's wearing like a Jason Aldean shirt and be like, I'll play an Aldean song. And they'll be like, yeah.
Read the room.
Yes, exactly.
Read the room.
Read the room. And that's something that is, it's not in, you don't start with that. You learn that.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why you try. And that's why you can, for example, when you're trying to cater to a specific audience, what are things that you look for in an audience to do your tip spiel?
I think like in a writer's round setting, first I would kind of cater what I'm playing to the room of people too. Because like you said, if somebody's wearing an Aldean shirt, I'm probably going to like sing something that's a little more in that style because I want to capture them. Or I'll like listen to what other people are playing and kind of try to match the energy of the round so that it's not like you're not sticking out like a sore thumb or anything like that, which has nothing to do with tipping. But I think like when I am pitching the tip jar to a room of people, one thing I will do, and it's also the next point that we were going to hit, I will speak as if they've already tipped. Right. And say like, hey, thanks for throwing some love in the tip jar. If you have like, we are all working for tips tonight. I'll speak on behalf of everybody and say like, hey, everybody that you've seen on this stage tonight is playing for tips. Yeah, playing for free. They're here simply because they love music and they want to be able to play the music that they are writing. And reminding the audience that you are playing for free and you are working for tips is oftentimes the thing they didn't know. They don't know you're not getting paid. Yeah. So they may wonder, like, why would I tip you if you're making money? But as soon as you tell them I'm doing this for free, it kind of tricks them, like, so to speak. And like, wow, I had no idea that they weren't getting paid to be here. Yeah. I think that works for, like, any setting to just be like, hey, like, thank you if you've thrown love in the bucket already. If you haven't and you enjoy what you're hearing, we do have this bucket down here, and everything is split 3 ways, 4 ways, however many people are on the stage. And that's what we go home with tonight. I'll say something to that effect, no matter who's in the room. But I think as far as like catering to the crowd, you kind of know based on like how well they're listening or how rowdy they are or who's sitting, even like down to like posture. I feel like sometimes you'll see a room full of like businessmen, and that's when you know you're going to want to keep it a little more poised. Right. You don't want to start dropping F-bombs in front of grandma and grandpa. But if it's like a bunch of people are just drinking, having a good time and interacting with you, I might say like, hey, if you like what you're hearing, throw some love in the bucket. If you hate it and think we should quit, maybe you should throw your whole wallet and we'll go get lessons so we suck less next time. You know, that'll land better with a room of people that are like laughing and engaging than a room of like businessmen or grandparents that are like... They're stiff. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so being able to cater is something that you do learn, and it does come with experience, but don't be afraid to try new things. Yeah. Don't be afraid to try to test out different things, so to speak. Yeah. And don't sound needy. Don't sound needy. First and foremost, don't be awkward. As soon as you make it awkward, and it goes for playing songs too, like... If you play something that diametrically changes the temperature of the room, people will be like, yeah. It's like that. What song was it? Try that in a small town that got a bunch of flack. Like you can't make jokes about things like that in front of people who clearly like that stuff, and also people who you don't know, right? Because you don't know how they're going to react to it. I learning experience in 2020. We were doing shows at Ole Red up on the roof, and it was like right after the mask mandate got lifted, and I made a joke about the masks. Oh no! And I have never heard crickets so loud. Yeah. And I let it sit for like 2 seconds, and I was like, anyways, let's put our hands here's Wonderwall.
Yeah, so you learn. Yes. You learn. Yeah, you definitely learn from experience. That's probably something that should be noted, too. Is like, try things. Don't be afraid to try something on a room. Because sometimes you might say something that does land. Yeah. And then people might be more inclined to throw money. But
But don't give up and not ever like try again if it doesn't.
Don't
land. I would
beat a
just
dead
move
horse.
on. Yeah, and don't keep bringing it up. Like if it, I shouldn't have said that, or like don't let your face get beat red and act like, oh, I
Right.
want to get off the stage right now. Like we're all human. We're literally just showing up.
We're
and singing
literally
our
just
songs.
trying.
Oh, it's for real.
Or when people say something and it doesn't work and they go like on the offensive.
And they're like, "Oh, okay, I see. You don't think I'm funny? Wow,
Yeah, if people
Wonder
say
who
or if
pissed
you
in your
say something and
Cheerios
people
today.
don't respond to it, don't heckle them for not liking what you said. Yeah, so there's so many things that just come with the experience of gigging, but the audience, bless their heart, I hate saying like the customer's always right, but like you do have to cater to the customer
playing for free."
even when you're playing for free.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's move on to point number 3, and this is something that chaps my ass personally as a person who books shows. But point number 3 is don't leave right after your set. Mm-hmm. And you may literally leave money on the table, and I've had that happen multiple times.
Yeah.
And it was at the Cambria Hotel maybe a month and a half ago, where our 6 o'clock writers round was, they played great. There was a small audience, so it wasn't crowded. People on stage weren't like getting rowdy and playing the bar songs. But some dude came in and put $500 into the jar.
Yeah.
And one girl didn't see it. She left without taking her money.
Yeah.
And the other people
Tough
on
luck.
stage were like, do we save this and give it to her? I was like, no, she left. It's like, this is for you. You stayed. It's like, if this person had stayed for 5 minutes, we would have had time to give them the money.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not gonna chase after you.
Did they text you later and be like, "Hey, did you guys get any tips tonight? Like,
Yeah.
here's my Venmo if
Yeah.
you want to send it to me."
But I didn't feel bad, like, because you literally leave money on the table. So this applies to, I guess, all gigs. But if you have merch, stay to try to sell it for a minute.
Yeah.
Or there might be those stiff businessmen who really liked your music and then ask personally, hey, I don't want to tip the whole show.
Yeah.
I want
they
to tip
slip
you.
money.
How do I
Yeah.
do that? And that's why the importance of staying for even a minute
Yeah.
is important. Like,
I think it's just as important to like just walk around and greet everybody.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for listening to my music.
So-
You could have been, and I say this every time I get on a stage at the end, I will always make a point to say, you could have gone to any bar in this town to listen to a song that you knew tonight.
mm-hmm.
You could have gone to any bar down the road and walked in there to listen to your favorite songs, Wagon Wheel and Friends in Low Places, and songs that you can sing along to. And you chose to be here listening to our stories and our songs that you've never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the world to us because we bust our asses every day. We
Right.
sit in these rooms for hours and bang our heads into walls trying to just
to go
make
through
it
that
all
trauma
rhyme.
songwriting again all
And-
over.
And it's pretty rare that we get to play, sadly, for a room of people that actually want to sit and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means a lot that you sat and listened to music that you didn't know.
Right.
And even if they don't tip, I still make a point to say that
Because it
it's-
makes them feel like they had a more meaningful experience.
Yeah, but I think that it's right, which is that is the freest way you can support a musician is to follow them on social media. Those numbers matter, and those people who will listen to your music, those streams, like they matter. And so I think that like it's just as important to not only stay after your round and not leave right away, not be in a hurry to go home and put your pajamas on. They'll be waiting for you. Like,
And don't
whether
worry,
you
we
get there in
all
10
wanna
minutes or
leave.
10 hours.
We all want to
We've
go
all
home and
done
put
it.
on our pajamas.
And we've all left early too.
Right.
Like we've all done it before. I mean, I've had to go to other shows before
Mm-hmm.
and had to like literally pack up and run downstairs at the Cambria to play at Nash
play at
House.
Nash House.
Like I've had to leave to go play somewhere else. And maybe that's something that everyone should consider, like managing your time slots a little better too,
Right.
so that you can fully give your attention to
That
everywhere
actually
that you are.
happened at Tour Stop not long ago, where somebody had booked themselves to play the 7 to 8 o'clock round at the Cambria, which is downtown on 8th Avenue.
Yeah.
And they came up to me before and they're like, hey, I got to leave for another gig that starts at 8. And I was like, oh, are you playing downstairs? And they're like, no, I'm playing over at the Nashville Palace. And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, honey, you're
that's
not.
so far away.
He's like, you're not playing.
That's like so far
You're going to be
away.
25 minutes late to your show.
That's wild.
Like, I don't know what part of you thought that you could make it from downtown Nashville to Opryland in 1 minute.
Teleport.
Like, even if you took a helicopter from the roof of the hotel, it'd still take 5 minutes to get there.
Yes, but I think like it's just as important to and you are literally leaving the money on the table as well if you leave right away. But I think it's just as important to go and talk to everybody that's in the room and just be like, hey, thanks for listening tonight, or just make yourself available to them, because a lot of them will come up to you and be like, hey, like, you were amazing tonight. I really liked your songs. I really connected with this one. You can talk to them, and sometimes they'll slip you a little money and be like, hey, like, I just wanted to give you this. Like, keep going. I've played in like trio settings where when I'm like walking around, or played in like full band settings where I'm walking around just like to go to the restroom in the middle of my set or whatever, and somebody will be like, hey, like, I've heard your story before, and I just want you to know, like I had somebody that came up to me and was like, my daughter went through what you went through, and I hope that you will keep fighting for good in this world. And he handed me $100 and gave me a hug, and he wiped a tear from his eye and walked away. And like,
and if you had left immediately, that wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have gotten to have that cathartic experience.
If you wouldn't have gotten to know that you
contributed to that. Yeah. And then you wouldn't have gotten the money.
And it's not even about like, you know, I hate to be like, you know, money, you know, like hungry for money or whatever. But like, there are people who are waiting to be thoughtful to you too, like waiting for like a connection with you. And that's just as good of a tip as a money tip is.
So, because sometimes it's like it reaffirms you that like, I don't suck at this.
Yeah.
It's like it's those little moments that remind you why you do it.
Yeah.
Because sure, like you said, we didn't get into this to be superstars. We didn't get into it to be rich. We got into it because we love the art and the craft of songwriting. And dollars to donuts, we want people to like our music.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, even if they don't have $100 to throw in the jar, if they say they liked your music, you're like, thank you.
Oh my God. I'm on a high right now.
Do you want a hug?
What's Gypsy Rose? I'm on a high right now.
It makes me misty thinking about it. Well, here, let's go through a couple more of these here. Let's go on to number 5 here. And we've talked about this a little bit here. It said, do not say, I know this is awkward. Do not, because it wasn't
gives me
awkward.
The ick.
It wasn't awkward. As soon as you acknowledge that something feels uncomfortable, then it becomes uncomfortable. So when you're asking people for tips or to contribute to the tip jar, I call it the Taco Bell Fund. Don't tell people it's weird to give you money.
Yeah.
You want them to feel secure in the decision that they're going to give you money. And the more safe and secure they are dropping that money into your tip jar, the more they might put into it.
Another one that really gets me is when people are like, you can tip us.
Blech.
Like when we do it, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know, like we have a tip jar down there. And
cringy.
Like, I'm like, I want to die.
Like every time I do a show at
awkward, but
every time I do shows at the Cambria Hotel, I remind people that we do have a tip jar and it is all going to the artists. But I say that it can go to their drive home, or like this can buy them groceries. Like remind people that we're all like the humanity behind it. Your $5 might literally pay to get me to my next gig.
That is another thing I say at the end of every gig is like, hey, we're full-time musicians. And I know that's not always the case for everybody that's on stage. A lot of people will like work a job on the side and do their like writer's round stuff is really the only way that they get to play their music. But if you make a point to say like, hey, every dollar you throw in there is what keeps a roof over our heads, food in our fridge, our water running. But most importantly, it keeps us living this dream and doing what we love, which is music. It allows us to record our music and put it out. And that is because of people like you. And we wouldn't be able to do it without people like you. So thank you. You have no idea how much it means to us. If you give them bullet points of things that their money is going towards, this isn't going towards my next beer. Okay? This isn't going towards
I'm not going to buy
a candy snack on the way home. I'm not going to stop and I'm not going to exactly. I'm not going to stop and get Sour Patch Kids on the way home tonight, okay? This is keeping gas in my car. This is paying for my parking so I'm able to go and like continue to chase this dream.
Right.
This is going towards recording my music, keeping a roof over my head. You know, maybe if you want to spice it up, you can say, this is keeping me from living under a bridge. Okay? If you want to say something a little silly.
This is keeping me from moving back into my ex, who I wrote the first song about.
And please don't make me call him, because it will not be a beautiful interaction. I can tell you that.
Well, this is a great place for us to take a commercial message. I would like to remind everybody we are now recording in Interstate Music on Music Row. Check them out on the interwebs. We'll have all of that linked in the episode description. But we'll be right back with more of Tory Grace on the Nashville Tour Stop Podcast. The Nashville Tour Stop Podcast is recorded live on Music Row in Nashville, Tennessee at Interstate Music, and is produced by Amadio AV Solutions with Mr. Alex Amato. Now more from the Nashville Tour Stop Podcast. And we're back with the Nashville Tour Stop Podcast, Tory Grace, episode number 111, featuring how to make money when you're not making money. These are some of our tips that we kind of came up with to help you make money in your gigs.
Yes.
Yay.
Woo-hoo.
Grandma and Grandpa, I know you guys don't gig, but
if you ever wanted to,
here's some tips.
some valuable little tidbits.
We just finished covering Writers' Rounds, and there will be a lot of overlap between these because, again, it's money and
yeah.
that's the same. But we're going to cover Broadway and cover gigs.
Yes.
Which you do.
I do.
All the time.
6 to 9 times a week. Help.
Help. Speaking of giving me money. We started the Writers' Rounds by talking about QR codes, and these are something that are really effective in multiple ways. You can put them on the tables. I have retractable banners that I take to my gigs. Big, giant QR code.
Hard to miss.
You want it to be as big as possible so that people sitting as far away can still read it with that iPhone.
Yeah.
If it's too small, people won't do it. And then again, I can't tip you because I don't want to get up from my table.
Yeah.
You miss money.
Yeah.
Retractable banners, QR codes.
Banners.
That's base one.
Yes. I think it's kind of cool to have two different ones, like two different QR codes. One that gives you a link directly to your Venmo or your tipping
Right.
websites. And I always have another one that has my link tree on it.
Right.
That at the top has an option to say, request a song, leave a tip, and then all the rest of them are my social media and my original music that they can stream. One works as a business card, the other one works as a virtual tip jar.
Right. And the request a song is a huge part of Broadway and cover gigs.
Yes.
You don't just get to play 4 hours of what you want to play.
Yeah.
You have to play what people want to hear and what they're willing to pay for. And something that I've thought's interesting with that is people charging different amounts of money for different songs.
Yeah.
Like Stairway to Heaven's $100, Freebird's $100.
Really?
Freebird's $100.
Freebird's $100 for sure.
But I mean,
you know what? It just depends on how bad I hate the song. I feel like, and it's also like the difficulty of the song. Because Freebird, I think Freebird being $100 is totally fair.
Because it's so long.
Because one, it's so long, and it's very taxing on the guitar player.
Yep.
And the drummer.
Yep.
But two, people request it and then they don't even know what the song is. They just think it's a joke. So people will be like, Freebird! And then they're like, what is this shit? And then they leave because they're bored.
Yep.
You lose people in the crowd when you play Freebird.
Yep, because it's too long.
Because it's 10 minutes of a song that they actually don't know, and it's just like a joke. It's just an inside joke.
I had never considered that people might leave in the middle of a song like that because they're like, okay, this guitar solo has been going on for 6 minutes. It's like, okay, that's enough. Moving on. I mean, I've seen people do like the super abridged version that's 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
And even that's still pretty long for a Broadway song.
Yeah. You know what? If you're going to play Freebird, you're going to play All Too Well 10-minute version.
But
too.
I know
and you're going to lose the same people both times.
I know you've said it, but I've heard Paige Rose say it as well. It's like, I'm a human jukebox.
Yes.
And like, let me play the songs you want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's a fun way to like put it into the brains of these people. It's like, oh, they might be able to play a song that I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
And that's like, did you see the other day, I think it was Sunday or Saturday, that Ultimate Guitar went down, the app crashed, and everyone who was using it on Broadway didn't all of a sudden have a cheat sheet for the songs they're going to play.
Yeah.
So that's kind of scary.
That is scary. I put myself to the test and went live at one of my shows with just my phone. And usually if I'm going to go live, I also have my iPad so that I can look at
Swipe
tabs
through.
and stuff. But I challenged myself to do a full gig without having any tabs.
Wow.
I got through 4 hours of songs.
Wow.
Yes.
That's impressive.
4 hours of songs. People requested songs. I think I probably messed up a lot of them. But like, I was like, hey, you know what? Like, usually everybody has a cheat sheet, and I don't have one today because I'm really trying to maximize my audience right now.
Now, you put in our notes here, would you read number 4, a beautiful quote that you have said on stage?
Oh, this is my favorite. I say this a lot. I really do. I say, if I know your song, great. If I don't, I'm a professional musician, which means it's my job to professionally ruin all your favorite songs.
All of your favorite songs.
Yes.
And that's funny.
And
Talk
people
about
love
knowing how to
that.
read the room.
Yeah.
Like, that's something you'd say to a fun, easygoing.
You say that to a fun crowd. Honestly, you could say that to a room full of grandparents and they think it's hilarious.
They probably
too.
still think it's
They're
funny.
just like, oh. And there are also times where like I'll say that after I've messed up a song. Like, for example, last weekend I played at Assembly Food Hall by myself for 3 hours. And my first request of the day was a Zach Bryan song. One that I don't know.
Right.
And
Like, let me ruin this for
stupidly,
you.
they said what songs they requested when I really didn't know at all. And I stupidly listed this song as like, I could probably do this one if you don't like these other
Do you
options.
have like the AirPod where you can listen to the song at the same time?
Yes, but I knew that the melody was repetitive the whole time. So I was like, I could probably get through this. And it was...
Was it awful?
I'm sorry, Zach Bryan. It was awful. It was so bad. And I just like... It was one of those things I was so embarrassed by the end of it because it was just me and there was nobody to sing a song after me. And so it was just me and a crowd. And I was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have offered that song. And,
Sorry.
and I said, I am a professional musician. So it is my job to professionally ruin all your favorite songs. And they were like, it didn't land super well that time. But I think it's because I had already just totally destroyed
You
the
totally
song.
bit the dust.
So it was horrible.
But yeah, that's a fun way to kind of ease the tension.
Yes.
Another thing I know you do is you customize your tip jar.
Yes.
Would you please tell our audience what you call your lovely tip jar?
My tip jar is called the slut bucket.
The slut bucket.
She's the slut bucket. She's bright pink, just like me.
Bright pink.
And she has fishnets on her. And they're my fishnet tights. I cut them and I tied them around and I cut a hole in it and then I put one of my laminated QR codes on the front. But this is just my Venmo QR code. So I taped it on the front and then I put a nice gold sparkly bow around the top.
The slut bucket.
The slut bucket.
I think it's funny.
She's beautiful.
Because people see it and they're like,
in all her
That's
slutty
funny.
glory. It's hilarious. People love it. Some people don't love it. And I'm like, you know what?
You know
We're
what?
just not each other's kind then, I guess.
It's like, I'm playing on Broadway at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
You're watching me play.
You're going to objectify me.
this-
I'm going to objectify my tip jug.
Yeah, if you want to see my fishnets, my slut bucket's right there.
She's right here. The only fishnets you're ever going to see me in. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, years ago I had my Taco Bell jar. Like, you just
Yeah.
dress it up like one of those old-fashioned water cups.
Yeah.
Like, make it funny. Make
Make
people
it fun and cute.
Make it fun to tip.
Yeah.
I
You know,
mean-
like sometimes coffee shops will like put those two out. And be
Charmander, Pikachu.
Like, right. Exactly.
I see stuff like that, and it's funny.
Yeah.
And
creative.
a friend of mine named Meredith Shaw wrote a song called Just the Tip.
Uh-huh.
And it's like the big ones going slow and the little ones going quick. But it's all about when people put in $100, they want you to see.
Yes.
But when they toss
That
in
is so
when they
true.
toss in $1, they're just like, there it is.
They don't want you to see how much.
But that's
they
another
gave.
thing that we didn't even put into our notes. Write a tip song. Write a song about getting tipped because it's funny.
Yeah.
And did you know Daniel Niehoff? He might have moved before you
Did
got
he used
into
to
Nashville.
Did he used to do podcast stuff with you?
Mm-mm.
No.
Daniel Niehoff was a buddy of mine. He was an early tour stop performer, but he wrote a song called Tips Appreciated. And every time somebody tipped him, he would sing it a step higher, and he'd play
that's
it until
so clever.
He would play it until he couldn't sing higher. It was so funny, and I've seen people do the same thing for every time you put money in the jar, I'll sing faster.
I got no money.
And I think that's a really funny thing to do because it makes it interactive. Not only do you make money, but the audience is entertained. They're like, wonder how fast we can get this motherfucker to sing.
But I don't know, like, singing a whole song every time somebody tips, you know? Like,
well, yeah, you don't sing the whole...
just
like
sing a little...
If somebody throws $1 in, you sing a little higher, and then somebody's like, you sing a little higher. And then 3 minutes later, you've got extra money, and you had a good laugh.
Or maybe you do it in a different genre.
There you go. Let's do a metal song to get tips.
Yes.
Well, we've got a couple more here in our cover gig. People do run their tip jars around. If you've got a friend in the house that'll do it for you, if you've got a member of the band, or in your case, part of you said your
part of my job
is being the pretty girl to run the tip jar around.
Yes, but I will say it makes a world of a difference if you tell people you're doing it before you do it.
Right.
That is my number one tip about running the bucket is let everybody know you're running the bucket before you get off the stage. Because if you just start walking around, then you look like a beggar. If you start walking around, you might as well have a sign that says, "Won't lie, I need a beer," like while you're walking around. If you say on stage before you walk off the stage, "Hey, like I'm going to be walking around with our bucket. If you like what you hear and you want to throw us a little love, come and find me. If you have a song you want to request $20, we'd love to give it a try. Or if you just want to come over and say, hey, I love making new friends. Like, come find me. I'll be a friendly face in the bar tonight. Like, I'll be walking around. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to come talk to me."
Right.
And then I'll get off stage.
And that brings us to the next point.
So much more welcoming.
Yeah, the next point you wrote down is being approachable.
Yes, be approachable.
And, like that's something that I think a lot of people don't. You wouldn't think of that as being part of it, but it's like I was such a nervous kid as like a high schooler. I wouldn't go talk to a pretty girl.
Yeah.
Like if you had been walking around and you came to talk to me, I would have been like, but I know how to talk to girls now.
Yeah.
But if you're not approachable, all of you are listening like, no, dude, you've been super awkward talking to Tori this whole time. But no, being approachable is a big part of it, and being friendly and kind or funny or goofy. Like Sean Livingston is so funny, and he's one of the most approachable people I know, because as soon as you start talking to him, he's going to start making jokes, and it's going to disarm you and make you feel comfortable. And as soon as you make the person, call them the customer, like as soon as the customer feels comfortable, they're going to be like, all right, that was pretty great. There's 5, there's 10, there's 20, there's 100. And it helps ease people in.
Don't just stand there and stare at people.
Don't relentlessly hold the bucket in front of someone's face
and be like, "Hey, tip the band." Yeah, I think that's another thing
awkward.
That a lot of people will say. Like, just walk up to people and be like, "Hey, tip the band." Mm-hmm. And that's not. That doesn't make me want to tip the band.
It makes it
awkward.
But
if I walk up to every table and say, "Hey guys, where are you from?" And they're like, "Oh, we're from Ohio," and I'm like, "OH." They're like, "I-O." And then I'm like, "What brings you to town?" And they'll tell me in a very short sentence, "Oh, we're here for a birthday," whatever.
Right.
That's awesome. Do you want to hear anything tonight? And they'll be like, "Oh, we're good." Because they usually will know if I'm asking you, what do you want to hear? Right. That means, do you want to tip the band? You know, do you guys have anything you want to hear?
That's a really good way to rebrand the question of, do you want to tip the band? Is there a song we can play for you?
Right. And they'll just, or people will be like, "Hey, what's that bucket for?" I'm like, "If you want to request a song or leave a little love for the band." And they're like, "Oh, are you the person that's up on stage?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm one of them." Like, "That's me. Where are you from?" Be approachable, be friendly, have a conversation with them. Right. And they will be somebody that they want to tip.
Right.
Like if you're
fun.
Just a stone cold bitch looking for money, nobody wants to.
And that brings us to the next point, the final point for our cover gigs is if they say no, don't shame them for not tipping.
Well, why not? You know,
why not?
Or like, "Oh, okay, you know. And I will admit there have been times where somebody be like, "I just got here. You guys aren't even that good," and I'm like, Okay. Or they're like, "Why do you have to do that?" And I'm like, "Because this is how we make a living.
This is my job."
And sometimes it come across a little rude because I'm just, a little, and but it's not like they're going to tip me anyway. But at that point, it's like, some people are going to be rude about it. All you can do is just the most that they can do is say no.
Right.
You know, that's the worst thing that can happen.
Right.
And you just turn around and say, okay. Or they'll say, oh, I don't have any cash.
Right.
Oh, we have a Venmo if you want to scan the QR code. And they'll be like, I said no. You're
like,
okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Like,
have a good night.
Have fun. Enjoy
Bye.
your time. Thanks for your time.
Don't dwell on the no.
Yeah, just go to the next person. The next person probably waiting to give you $100 for Freebird.
Right.
You know, probably waiting. Or you can say too on the microphone, like, you know, we go in a list. $20 gets your song on the list. $100 gets you to the top of the list.
We'll play it right now.
Yeah. The higher the bid, the faster you're going to hear your song. So sometimes people will give us $40 or they'll give us $25 so that they can hear the song next. Or hear their song sooner than the other songs. But like if we're playing Enter Sandman and somebody comes up and says, I want to hear Head Over Boots, we're like, we can't play those.
We can't play these back to back.
That's not.
It's like part of my job is making the show flow.
This work. Yeah.
So cover gigs is we could probably do a whole podcast on just cover gigs. But let's talk about live streaming.
Yes.
And it's something that I've done a little bit of, but I'm sure you've done quite a bit more of.
Yes.
This started for me during the COVID shutdown.
Yeah, me too.
When there was no way to play real gigs. So start us off on the live streaming tip jar stuff.
There are different ways that you can do it. I think it also depends on like where you're streaming from. Because if you're streaming through like Twitch, you can also stream your Twitch stream to YouTube and you can connect it to Facebook and you can connect it to different like streaming services and you can customize your screen.
Right. So that you can have your logo and your QR code and everything visible on the screen immediately.
Right. All of those things. And you can point to them when you're, you know, like, hey, one thing that I used to do is have a QR code that had my set list on it. So you can scan that QR code and then it'll take you to all the songs that I know really well.
That's
and you
cool.
can pick one off of that. And I never got to it, but I thought about adding like a price point to every, you know, when you're playing by yourself, it's not $20 a song, you know, because when you're playing with a 5-piece band, $20, that's like $4 for every person, you know. If
you want to hear a song and you want to hear me play it solo, it might be $5.
$5, yeah. But if it's like a song that's going to like, you know, I'm not going to sing Heart. I'm not going to sing Alone by Heart for $1. So
I'm also not going to sing Enter Sandman for $1.
For $1. Yeah. You can add like a price point on like if you just make like a spreadsheet and whatever and say like these are your $5 songs. These are a little bit harder for me to play or a little bit harder
if you
want to
see me do an acoustic cover of Freebird.
If you want to see me learn a song on the fly and play it for you after just listening to it for the first time, $20. You know, like you can put a price on that stuff, or you can just play songs that people want to hear because they're following you. That you're getting follows and like on places like Twitch, that'll get you like to different statuses. You can be an affiliate, and then you can be, you know, like you can get different rankings.
You can do things
so you
like
can make
that
more
are.
Money off
you can do stuff to interact with the audience too, and be like, hey, if you follow me on my social platforms, I'll play one of my originals for free.
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
That are cool ways to engage the audience so that they stay watching, and they're like, oh, I like following you, and then next time they're like, oh, shoot, she's doing another Twitch. I'll watch this one.
Yeah.
And now I'll pay for a song that I love, or they might pay you to play the song that you wrote.
Exactly. Or they'll like wait until the stream's over and then send you like a gift and be like, hey, thanks for you know, that was a really fun time for me or whatever. If you push it that way, you know, having your screen customized is a really good way to push a tip jar when you're on a streaming platform like that. If you're on TikTok, you can either pin your comment at the bottom. But it disappears every 60 seconds. So at that point, I would hire a mod to sit there and every couple of minutes be like, hey, virtual tip jar here.
Right.
Or they have these like different like little bit things that you can send and those turn into money. The currency is way smaller on those, but it's a good way to get like, you can get people to sub and then you can have sub only lives where the first hour is sub only, so only the people who are subscribed can comment and like interact and send you gifts and stuff, and then after that it's open to the public, and the public can still watch but they can't comment if they don't pay for a sub. So then that gets people to either who want to comment and request a song to pay $5 a month for a sub.
That's cool.
Or you can set like a goal for like roses or like a penny a piece. So one time I was on TikTok live and I got and I got like 40,000 roses.
Oh my God.
But that turned into like
$40,
you know, which is $40 more than I had at the beginning of that set. And I was on there for 4 hours.
Right.
So it was a normal gig, whatever. You know, that's $40 more than I would have had if I didn't do that. And what else was I going to be doing? Sitting there scrolling TikTok
home,
anyway,
right.
you know?
And that's one of the things that when I was doing these live streams, we were at home all the time. I was like, okay, if I have nothing else to do, I'm going to make it as consistent as possible. And that's one of the things that I've tried doing with my regular tour stop shows. Mm-hmm. When are my shows? They're every week at the same time.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday at 6, every Wednesday at 6, every Monday at 6. Like, it's unchanging so that you don't have to remind people as much. Like, oh, Tori's live stream is going to be every Friday at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And they don't have to remember as much. You don't have to remind people. You still do.
Yeah.
But it's easier to start internalizing for the fans. They can be like, oh, okay, well, I can't watch this week, but I know that she'll be back next Friday. I will watch that one.
It's a regular thing.
The consistency helps a ton.
Yes.
And that comes back with also like the consistency of the set list. Like, don't play it the same songs unless people are paying you to play the same songs.
A lot of people will just have a list and start from the top and just play down. But then people know what to expect. So then the next time they watch, it's like they're just watching you re-perform the same 10 songs for the first hour. So maybe make a note of like where you left off so that the next time you can start with like 5 different songs, and then just kind of, or if there's a way to shuffle it, if you can put it in a list that you're able to shuffle and like follow the same list in a different order so that people are hearing, you know, not the same songs every single week, I would do something like that.
Right.
But I think like, I always want to encourage people to just like, TikTok can be so discouraging and so disheartening because I just hit 160K followers, but I average about 300 views.
Yep.
Like,
which is crazy.
Which is wild. And I just always like want to encourage people like to just keep posting. Like, even though you get 300 views, like, you've got 300 people that are watching you, and you would die to perform for 300 people, you know? And I get so wrapped up in like, oh no, but you know, this song didn't perform well, so it must not be a good song and whatever. But like, if you just keep pushing and just keep, you just need to reach one person ultimately. Right. And like, maybe your song reaches 300 views and it changes one person's life, or maybe it reaches 12 million views and 10,000 of them are telling you that you have something in your nose and you just leave feeling worse about yourself. But what I'm trying to get at is like, also like, you can really benefit financially off of that app if you really give it your all.
And live streaming is a free way to do it.
Yes.
Even if you make $0, you are out zero.
You don't have to leave your house to do it. There are ways. I just got to a point where I'm able to like buy into I'm able to apply for the
the monetization stuff,
the program of where you get paid for your views after that. So it took me a couple years to get there, but I didn't give up. You know,
is it based on the number of views you get per video, or the number of views and likes you've gotten overall? So
if your video is over a minute, it has to be over a minute for it to qualify. But once you get to I think it's once you get to 150,000 followers. I might be wrong about that. It might be 100,000. It might be 10,000. Who knows? It might be a new thing that's just for everybody.
Right.
But you apply to it, and it's like every 1,000 views, you can make anywhere between 70 cents and $1.10. And so, you know, for me, who gets, you know, sometimes mostly 300 views, but occasionally I posted one the other day. It's sitting at 11,000, and
that'll pay out $10 or $12, right?
Yeah. And then I have one that I just sat there for 3 minutes talking about my prom date in high school that killed his family, and that one got 2.5 million views. Okay, so whatever the math is of that, that's money. That's gonna hit my bank account, you know. And you don't have to just do music on TikTok. You don't have to just do TikTok live streaming. You can do a portion of it is you singing, and the other portion is you building a coffee table, and the other portion is you just answering people's questions and just hanging out with people or whatever, or making
consistency
cocktails
is key.
And
just be there.
telling horror stories about your ex. I could go on for days. I like have so many crazy dating stories that I can sit there and...
we were talking about that a few weeks ago with Kayla Woodson, how I had an idea for a podcast called Fumble.
Yeah. Oh, put
and
me on. Put me in, coach.
Because we thought it would be a lot of fun and just talking about all of our cringe dating stories. So we'll have to have you on maybe the inaugural episode of Fumble.
Oh my God, please. Please. I have so many. I will save my Tinder dates.
Tori, thank you for coming on the podcast today. This has been How to Make Money When You're Not Making Money with Tory Grace.
Hey.
Tori, you did have a new single come out called Match. Can you give your plugs, tell folks who listen to this week where they can find you, how they can give you money?
Yes, you can find me on all streaming platforms at Tory Grace. Tory is spelled with a Y.
Tory.
ToryGrace. You can also find me on all social medias, Tory_Grace on Instagram, and the rest is just Tory Grace. TikTok. Twitter? No, Twitter's X now.
Twitter's X and
Threads, you know.
I think Twitter's over.
Facebook is Tory Grace Music. I'm not super active on that though, so don't waste your time there.
We'll have a link to your link tree in the podcast episode description.
And at the top, you can request a song, leave a tip if you feel so inclined.
Well, Tori, thank you for joining us. Would you like to leave our listeners with anything else this week?
Just keep going.
Keep going.
Don't. I know you're tired, baby. I know you're tired. I am too. Okay?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the podcast this week, recorded live on site at Interstate Music here on Music Row. We'll be back next week with more on the Nashville Tour Stop podcast. So in the meantime, give us a follow on your social medias at Nashville Tour Stop. If you would like to come to one of our live shows, possibly see Tory Grace or our producer, Alex Amato, live, you can come see them. All of our podcast episodes are produced by Amadio AV Solutions. Mr. Alex Amato behind the ones and twos. Thank you so much, buddy. We'll be back next week with episode number 112 on the Nashville Tour Stop podcast. Yeah!